I was on a cross-state drive, traveling alone in the middle of the night. The road was empty, illuminated only by the occasional streetlights spaced far apart. I had been driving for over 10 hours, and exhaustion was creeping in. My eyelids felt heavy, and I knew I needed to rest before something bad happened. After a few more miles, I spotted an old roadside sign that read Gas and Motel, 2 miles ahead. I didn't mind sleeping in my car, but if there was a more comfortable option, it was worth considering. I followed the sign and found a small rundown gas station on the side of the road. The building looked aged and somewhat grimy, with a flickering neon "Open" sign barely holding on. There were no other cars in sight except for an old truck parked near the side. I took a deep breath and pulled into the parking lot. As I stepped out of my car, I noticed a man standing behind the station's glass window, staring at me. He didn't smile, didn't move, just stood there, watching. I walked inside, greeted by the strong scent of gasoline and stale coffee. The shelves were half empty, and the beverage cooler hummed loudly in the background. The man at the counter looked to be in his 50s. His thinning, greasy hair clung to his forehead, and dark circles sat beneath his sunken eyes. "There's a motel out back if you need a place to rest," he said in a flat tone. I frowned. "A motel?" He nodded toward a door on the side of the store. "Some drivers sleep there before continuing their trip. $20 for the night." I glanced outside. I could just sleep in my car, but a real bed and a bathroom sounded better. I pulled out some cash and handed it to him. The man reached behind him and took a key off the wall. First door down the hall. I walked through a dimly lit, narrow hallway behind the store. The paint on the walls was peeling, and the flickering overhead light cast eerie shadows. There were 3 doors, and I unlocked the first one. The room was small, almost like a storage space converted into a bedroom. A single bed with wrinkled sheets sat in the center, accompanied by a worn wooden table and a small dresser in the corner. No windows. I locked the door, dropped my bag on the floor, and lay down. I was about to drift off when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, stopping right outside my door. I held my breath. Then the doorknob rattled. Someone was trying to open it. I sat up straight, staring at the door. A few seconds later, the footsteps faded away. I tried to brush it off. Maybe another guest got the wrong room. But about an hour later, I heard it again. This time, the steps were softer, like someone was standing just outside, listening. I reached for my phone and turned on the screen. No signal. Then I saw it. A small, crumpled piece of paper had been slipped under the door. Cautiously, I picked it up and read it in the glow of my phone screen. "Don't go out." My heart pounded. I stared at the door, holding my breath. Slowly, I pressed my ear against it. I could hear breathing. I stepped back, gripping my phone tightly. Whoever was out there knew I had seen the note. I glanced at my bag, debating whether to leave immediately. But before I could decide, a noise broke the silence. Something was being dragged along the floor. Then, the sound of a key turning in the lock. My eyes widened. I was sure I had locked the door, but now the doorknob was moving. I jumped back, grabbed my bag, and prepared to run. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the gas station cashier standing in the doorway. He stared at me blankly, his hand still gripping the knob. I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward, shoving him aside, and sprinted down the hallway. As I burst into the store, I glanced back. One of the other room doors down the hallway was slightly open, and for a split second, I saw something inside. There were multiple beds, not motel beds, but hospital-style beds. And in one of them, someone was lying still, covered with a sheet. I couldn't see their face, but I knew they weren't sleeping. I bolted to my car, started the engine, and floored it. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the cashier standing outside the store watching me. As I sped away, the lights of the gas station flickered and went out. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. Behind the man, I saw figures emerging from the hallway, standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I never found out what was really happening in that place, but I swear, if I had stayed just 1 minute longer, I might have never made it out at all. I have never felt afraid of driving at night. In fact, I actually enjoy it. The roads are quieter, and the city lights create a peaceful atmosphere that's hard to find during the day. When I was in my early 20s, my friends and I often stayed up late, driving around aimlessly. We would sit in parks, empty parking lots, or anywhere that felt comfortable, talking about things that now seem unimportant. That night was no different. I had just dropped off a friend after spending a few hours at the city park. It was 3:30 a.m. when I noticed that my gas tank was almost empty. Luckily, my usual gas station wasn't far, so I decided to stop by before heading home. I always preferred refueling at night. No lines, no rush. Everything felt more relaxed. I pulled up to one of the pumps, turned off the engine, and stepped out. The night air was cool, but still, with no wind. As I walked toward the small building where the cashier was, I saw him. A thin man in a black hoodie was stepping out of the gas station, walking in my direction. I didn't know why, but I instantly felt uneasy. His hood was pulled up, covering most of his face, and his walk was strange, slow, but deliberate. As he got closer, he suddenly stopped just a few feet away from me and stared directly into my eyes. His gaze was empty, not like someone who was angry or upset, but like someone studying something or someone. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to ignore him. I walked past him without saying anything, but I could feel his eyes following my every move. Once inside, I glanced at the glass door to see if he was still there, but he was gone. Weird. I brushed off the uneasiness and quickly paid the cashier, grabbing a bottle of water as well. The cashier, an old man with thick glasses, looked sleepy and barely acknowledged me. I took my change and walked back outside. The place was still empty. I made my way to my car, checking my surroundings to make sure I was alone. The man was nowhere to be seen. I filled up my tank quickly, then got into the car and locked the doors, a habit I always followed. I opened the water bottle, took a sip, then started the engine and began driving home. After a few minutes on the road, I started to relax. Maybe I had been too paranoid earlier, but then I heard it, breathing, a slow, steady breath that wasn't mine. A chill ran down my spine as my heartbeat quickened. I turned my eyes toward the rearview mirror, and there, in the back seat, someone was sitting still, staring at me. I screamed at the top of my lungs. My instincts kicked in, and I slammed on the brakes. Tires screeched loudly as I nearly lost control of the car. "God," I gasped, reaching for the door handle, ready to jump out. The figure in the back seat didn't move. In the mirror's reflection, I could finally see his face. It was the man from the gas station. He just sat there, calm, expressionless. I flung the door open and stumbled onto the pavement, nearly falling as my feet hit the ground. I backed away from the car, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. The back door of my car slowly opened. The man stepped out casually, as if we had just shared a normal ride together. Then, in a low, flat voice, he said something that made my blood run cold. "I could have killed you earlier." I was speechless. As I tried to process his words, he slowly walked away, disappearing into the shadows by the side of the road. I stood frozen, my body still trembling, trying to comprehend what had just happened. It took me a few minutes before I found the courage to approach my car, making sure he was truly gone. I opened all the doors, checked the back seat, even looked under the seats. There was no one there. Finally, with shaking hands, I got back into my car and started the engine. The whole way home, I couldn't stop glancing at the rearview mirror, terrified that someone might be there again. I never figured out how that man got into my car. I was sure I had locked the doors when I got in, but one thing is certain. That night, I didn't sleep at all. This happened when I was still in college. I had just finished my first year and was on my way home for summer break. The trip was long, about 9 hours by car, and I planned to complete it in a single day. I left campus earlier than I had originally planned. At first, I intended to leave the next morning, but I felt uncomfortable in my dorm. My roommate often brought people over, and I was tired of the noise, so I decided to leave as soon as all my belongings were packed into my car. I drove for hours along a deserted highway. By the time the clock hit 11 p.m., I still had about 2 hours left to go. But my eyes were getting heavy, and I realized I was too sleepy to continue driving safely. I didn't want to spend money on a hotel room, so I decided to pull over and rest in my car for a while. I searched for the nearest gas station on my phone, hoping to find a well-lit place with a convenience store or a fast food restaurant. Luckily, there was one not too far ahead, about 5 miles away. I turned on the radio and cracked the window slightly to keep myself awake until I got there. The gas station was smaller than I had expected. There was no fast food restaurant or large convenience store, just an old building with a flickering neon sign. There were 2 gas pumps under a metal canopy, and only one other car parked there. The lights around the area were dim, and most of the lot was shrouded in darkness since there were no street lights nearby. I parked off to the side, away from the pumps. Taking a deep breath, I turned off the engine. The place felt unsettling, but I was too exhausted to care. I rolled up the windows, locked the doors, and reclined my seat as far back as possible before closing my eyes. I wasn't sure how long I had been asleep, but I woke up to the sound of something moving outside my car. At first, I thought it was just the wind, or maybe the distant hum of another car engine, but when I heard the sound of footsteps approaching, I felt an immediate sense of unease. I opened my eyes and glanced at the window. Through the glass, I could see a shadowy figure standing near the gas pumps. He wasn't refueling his car or going into the store, just standing there, facing my car. I tried to ignore it and shut my eyes again, but a few seconds later, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps on the asphalt, getting closer. I held my breath. Through my side mirror, I could see a silhouette moving. Then, someone knocked on my window. The knock was soft, almost as if they were trying to wake me gently. I remained silent, hoping they would leave. But after a few seconds, the knocking turned into a louder, more forceful banging. Now I could see him more clearly. A man dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by the dim lighting. He leaned in, trying to peer inside my car. My hand crept toward the keys, ready to start the engine. But before I could, the man grabbed the door handle and tried to open it. Panic surged through me, but thankfully, the doors were locked. He tried the back door next, then moved to the other side of the car. I knew I had to get out of there immediately. I quickly started the engine, and as the dashboard lights illuminated, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the windshield, there was a faint handprint, as if someone had pressed their palm against the glass earlier. And it wasn't mine. I didn't have time to think. I slammed the car into gear and sped off, leaving the man behind without looking back. I drove nonstop until I reached home, too scared to pull over anywhere along the way. I don't know who that man was or if he was the one who left the handprint on my windshield. But one thing is certain, I will never sleep in my car at a strange place again.